Hello again, plant friends, and welcome back to Happy Hoya Days. My name is Sarah, and today we are talking about Hoya Linearis. So Hoya Linearis wasn't really a Hoya that was on my wish list. I thought it was kind of interesting, and if I had the opportunity to get it, I might not, wasn't really looking for it. But then I ended up spotting it in an interior design, and it had just like this, these really long tendrils like this, and it was just sitting on a shelf hanging. And I thought, what a pretty plant. And I knew immediately that it was the Hoya Linearis. So I set about trying to find one. So even though it's a relatively quick grower, at least it is for me, this is one that I would recommend trying to get a hold of an established plant versus cuttings if you can at all possible. I've had kind of mixed success with cuttings. I had a cutting, the first cutting that I got died on me. And then with propagating this plant, I've also had kind of mixed success with the Linearis cuttings. I think partially because it is a little bit fuzzy and then it is such a thin stem. I think this one, just if you can get an already established plant, which doesn't seem like it's too hard, I would highly recommend that. Like I mentioned, it is a relatively quick grower for me. When I first got it, it probably had leaves that just came down to about the end of the pot here. Nothing, too crazy, and is put on so much growth. It just hangs. And like I said, I've taken a few cuttings just for people that wanted them. Overall, I'd say as far as care, this one, maybe a middle of the road, maybe a little bit more on the difficult side. You definitely need to know what you're doing with the thinner leafed, thinner stemmed Hoyas for sure. It's one that I also don't have in my typical mix. I actually left it in kind of the more peaty mix that it came in. And it really seems to enjoy that. It enjoys really getting a good soaking, and then I let it dry out almost completely. And then I re-soak it and it stays wet for I don't know, almost a week, 2 weeks before it dries out. I also should note that I have this one not necessarily directly in a window. It's kind of back a little ways in a little bit of a darker spot, and it seems to enjoy that just fine. The Hoya Linearis is native to the Himalayas, which again indicates to me it could do with a little bit colder temperatures, although I don't particularly do that for this Hoya just because of how thin the leaves are. And as far as blooms go, I see mostly that kind of like white, creamy, maybe a little bit towards yellow, and that when it does bloom or start blooming, that it becomes a very prolific bloomer. I heard a few descriptions of the scent, that it scented kind of a very, very mild citrusy, maybe even lemon scent, and I have not had this particular one bloom, so I can't verify that, but that came up a couple of times. A couple people had mentioned that. Overall, definitely one of the more aesthetically pleasing Hoyas if you're looking for something to set on a shelf or hang in a basket, something like that. It's got these beautiful long tendrils, but just keep in mind it might take a little bit extra care or a little bit of experimenting trying to figure out the best care for this particular Hoya. Overall, this Hoya is becoming much more easy to get a hold of, and like I said, I would definitely recommend if you can get a hold of established plant over a cutting. I think you'll have a much easier time, a much more successful time growing this particular plant. So overall, not a Hoya I would recommend necessarily for beginners to Hoya, but a beautiful Hoya nonetheless. I can highly recommend it if you can get a hold of one. If you're enjoying today's video and all of Happy Hoya Days, take a moment, give me a thumbs up, letting me know you've enjoyed this video, and hit that subscribe button if you're not already. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in a couple of days with a new Hoya. Bye.